Well, folks, you're not seeing a typo. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost to the 2-10, now 3-10 New Orleans Saints. They dropped to 7-6. And really a large part of their own destiny is still somewhat in their control, but is also not in their control in some way, shape, or form. Um, it would have helped if they won this divisional game, and they didn't. And not only did they lose, quite frankly, I think that it was an embarrassing, disgusting loss. And I'm going to try to be very fair in this analysis and not let the emotions bubble to the surface, so to speak. I want to be as analytical as I can possibly be in a loss like this. But this is such an ugly blemish of a loss. Um, it needs to be discussed in greater detail, right? So, starting off with really, let's just talk about what this means in the overall picture, right? Because I could break down the game in terms of stats with like, well, Mayfield didn't pass well today, but it was a really rainy game. It was pouring rain the entire game, right? Well, they ran the ball well, stuff like that. It's stuff like that, and like we will get into that. Like just real quick, like you know, Mayfield didn't pass well, 14 of 30, 122 yards, one touchdown, one pick. He was not great today, but it was pouring rain. They ran the ball very well today, which you would expect from a rainy game. Ibuka had a drop today, which was in the end zone that would have had the Buccaneers tie up the game. Doesn't come down to one play, though. Godwin had a very crucial drop in this game. Again, it doesn't come down to one play. There was a no call pass interference on K-Don. Again, it doesn't come down to one bad referee call. Jace McLaughlin had a great day today, as did Riley Dixon, their punter. Defensively, looked very solid in the first half. In the second half, they just didn't do enough to win. Vita Vea had a sack. Braswell had a sack. Gaines had a sack. And that was all well and good, but Tyler Shuck made a lot of plays with his legs in the second half of this football game. 55 yards and 2 touchdowns. Devin Neal had a rushing touchdown as well. This team just didn't execute. It didn't. And I put that on the players. I put that on the coaching staff as well. It was a complete lack of organizational execution here, right? That is what happened here at the end of the day. And the chat, as you guys can see, the chat should be upset about this. They should 100% be upset about this because you just lost to the 2-10, now 3-10 New Orleans Saints football team, a team that you beat 23-3 earlier this year, and you lost to them, right? And your team couldn't execute, right? This team could not execute, and that falls on pretty much everybody. It's on the coaching staff. It's on the players. It's an absolute embarrassment, okay? This was a football team that was looking to have the number 1 overall pick, and you couldn't beat them. I don't care if there were injuries. I don't care if there was rain. Keep in mind, this is a Saints team that was missing their number 1 running back, their starting right tackle, a starting safety, as well as other players being injured as well, playing a rookie quarterback after they benched their previous quarterback, okay? And you could not beat this team. Their starting receivers having back pain issues. You couldn't beat them. You couldn't beat them. That's on coaching. That's on player execution. At the end of the day, that is what it is. And it's embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing. And look, that going back started, folks, 5-1. 5-1. Okay. Since then, they're 2-5. Since then, since going 5-1, they are 2-5. This is absolutely inexcusable from Coach Bowles and his staff. Inexcusable from this organization to go from 5-1 to 2-5. And now you're looking at the Falcons on prime time, playing the Panthers twice in Miami. If you can't beat a team that's competing for the number one overall pick and can't sweep a team that's competing for the number one overall pick like the New Orleans Saints, why should there be any hope that this team can sweep the Panthers, beat the Falcons in 3 days on Thursday Night Football, and beat Miami? Why is there any hope for that, right? Why? There shouldn't be a ton of hope. I certainly don't have a ton of confidence that this team will, be the favorites and handedly beat an Atlanta team, a Carolina team, or a Miami Dolphins team. You know? And here's the thing for me. Here is a hard truth here. If the Bucs end up not making the playoffs, Todd Bowles should be done. He should be done. That is what I believe. Will it happen? I don't know. I would like to think yes, it would happen, and that Bulls would probably be done if they don't make the playoffs. I think that's what you can't go from 5-1 to not making the playoffs and not be fired. Like that's genuinely what I believe. And I think that's probably what the Bucs believe as well. If they don't make the playoffs, Todd Bowles should, and I think probably would be fired. I know people will say, look, injuries have been a big issue. And that's like the big crutch to lean on, right? And I do understand that to a certain point. But you started 5-1. You were hurt during that 5-1 start. You've been getting healthier as time has been going on, and you still end up 2-5. Still end up 2-5 throughout the stretch so far to this point, end up in the situation that you're in right now. And look, the Bucs could go in, they could win 4 straight, end up 11-6. Cool, right? They could split these games, end up 9-8, and then maybe still squeak into the playoffs. But like, I don't have a ton of confidence right now in this football team. I don't. I understand that it was a rainy, ugly, grimy football game. But, what about the Rams game? What about the Buffalo game? What about the New Orleans game? What about the Detroit game? It just seems like whenever these losses come up, it's like, well, this happened, or well, these guys were hurt. And at the end of the day, look, other football teams are finding ways to win. They are. And the hard truth about it now is that the Bucs just don't have the guys to overcome injuries, right? And I think that also falls on player execution, roster construction, as well as coaching staff as well. It's a little bit on everybody. It's on Jason Light. It's on Todd Bowles. It's on the players themselves to execute. Good example, the 49ers are 9-4. They've had injuries this year. They've certainly had injuries this year. The Packers are 8-3-1. They've had injuries this year. Every team has injuries. They do. You have to figure out ways to overcome these injuries. And the Bucs have not been able to do that in a consistent basis. And they have not been able to defeat great teams this year. That is the truth, right? That is just the hard truth. This feels like a team that's going to finish 8-9 and miss out on the playoffs. And if that happens, you're going to be looking at a new head coach of this football team. You are. Baffling. Just baffling, to go from 5-1 to find themselves in this place, to find themselves in this situation. And it should not be the case. It should not be. This team is more talented. This team has more talent than their record would indicate, in my opinion. It's just not good enough. It's the execution. It is the coaching. It's just an entire organizational thing where it's like, hey, they have some talented players on both sides of the ball. They're not playing up to what they should be doing. And I don't think they're coaching up to what it should be. It is, and I understand there's going to be a lot of flack on on a lot of different people, right? The players, the coaches, everything along those lines. Ultimately, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But if you were to come into this chat today and say, I do not have any faith in this team to win 3 out of their next 4 going forward, finish up 10-7 and make the playoffs definitively, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. This is looking like it's going to be a really ugly final month to the season. It is. To be frank, yeah, it just looks like it's going to be an ugly final month of the season. You know, man, oh man. You know, whenever we look back, like if you look at like, hey, the Detroit game, New England, Buffalo, Rams, those are great teams. They lost to great football teams. Now we've talked about that before where it's like, well, shouldn't like great teams be able to beat great teams at least somewhat? Like they haven't beaten a single great team this year. I think Seattle and San Francisco are very good teams. They're not great teams. And you were getting embarrassed by the great teams, right? By Detroit, by New England, by Buffalo, by Los Angeles. You barely beat Arizona, and now you lose to the Saints. It feels like this team is getting worse, right? It feels like this team is just getting worse as the season has been progressing, and we're seeing guys who really you should expect high levels of execution on not execute. Abuka's up there, Godwin's up there, the players in the defense are up there. Vita Vea feels like he's not executing at a high enough level. Levante David feels like he's not executing at a high enough level. And ultimately, like I feel like it's so easy to say like, well, the players aren't playing well, right? And that just is what it is, right? But like it goes hand in hand with coaching. The coaching staff is also supposed to get the best out of their players. I know that there's an argument to be had of like, well, the coaches can't go out there and make tackles. I understand that. Of course. But you're supposed to get the most out of these players, right? And you're supposed to help them execute at a high level. It can't just because by that logic, it's like, okay, then what happens if you just cut all the players and bring in a new roster? And then what happens then? You can't cut every starter on your football team for not executing. You know what I mean? And I understand it's a different player here, it's a different player there, and then it's a different player a few plays later. I understand that, but like you have it falls hand in hand. Yes, it is on the players, but it is also on the coaching staff. You have to have your team vitalized, ready to play, and executing at a high level, as well as the players being able to go out there as individuals and execute also. Like if it is a player here, a player there, a player here, a player there, well, then as a whole, you're not executing as a team. That's just what it is at the end of the day. You're not executing as a whole team. And that's what we've been seeing from the Bucs. Now offensively and defensively. It used to be just the defense, but now it's both the offense and the defense and special teams. Where this team is not playing like a complete football team. They haven't since that loss to Detroit. Really, they played like a complete football team against the Saints, let's say. But since then, no shot. No shot have they been playing like a full complementary football team. And that's on everyone. That's on everybody. But as you guys know, if this continues, the fall guy is always the coach. The fall guy is always going to be the head coach. The head coach is always the guy who's going to come out and say, hey, it starts with me. I'm the head coach of this football team. If the team isn't executing, it's my football team, and that's just the way it is at the end of the day. It's just rough, dude. What a rough loss. What a rough chunk for the Bucs. The past 7 weeks, you're 2-5. Insane, dude. Bucs fan 561 asks a really good question here. Do I think they've tuned out Todd's message? Do you feel, I mean, is that a fair thing to say? Because it does feel like this team is a little bit tuned out. It does. It does feel like this team is slightly tuned out. And look, Todd's been here a long time. Todd's technically been here for since 2019. This is his 6th year with the organization, because he was the DC and then he went to the head coaching position, you know. So he had 3 years as DC. Sorry, this is his 7th year in the organization, guys. 7 years. It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible that they could be tuning out Todd Bowles and his message at this point after 7 years. It is certainly possible, man. Same song and dance with Todd Bowles. He was given a good opportunity here. Unfortunately, it's time to move on. We'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But again, if people don't have a lot of confidence with how this season's going to end, I would not blame them. I would not blame them for not having a lot of confidence. With this loss, Todd Bowles falls to 34-30 in the regular season as a head coach. His overall record, though, is 35-33. 35-33 as the head coach of this football team. He went 9-8, or sorry, went 8-9, then 9-8. That's obviously a 500 record. Then he went 10-7. Okay. So that gave him 3 more wins. And right now they're 7-6. And also they're 1-3 in the playoffs under Bowles. So it's just it's not good, man. It's not a good situation right now that the Bucs find themselves in. Again, people are gonna point to like, well, hey, Wirfs wasn't available. And injuries. I don't view that as a reasonable excuse anymore. I don't. If you lose a game or two, that's fine. You go 2-5, 2-5. It's an organizational problem. And look, they still have a winning record and everything. They still have a winning record, and on paper, it's like, well, what do you mean they're 7-6? But like, they don't feel like a 7-6 football team. They really don't. And we'll see how the season ends. We'll see how the season ends, but this is an incredibly rough situation that they're in. Incredibly rough. And we'll see how it goes. I can't say that enough times. Like, I'm still in wait and see mode. If you've given up on what's going on here, it's tough to argue. But right now, Todd Bowles is 35 wins and 33 losses as the head coach of this football team. For some people that might, for some people they may say, hey, that's good enough, right? For others, they say this team has way too much talent to be a slightly 2-game above 500 football team. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. I think everybody has a reasonable take where it's like injuries do play a factor. That's not a good enough excuse anymore. Players aren't executing. That's true. Coaching staff isn't coaching well enough. That's true. We've seen good moments from this team. That is also true. We've seen ugly, bad moments from this team. That is also true. We're experiencing one such moment right now. Tony asks a very interesting question. Do I think John Gruden would come back and coach this team? I think he would want to. Yeah, I do. In fact, if me and a couple people think, a few friends of mine, where if Todd Bowles were to be fired, we think that John Gruden would probably be the next head coach of this football team. But I think that's a conversation that we save for another day. The Bucs are in a really ugly, precarious situation right now, and it's not good. It's not good. Folks, my name is James Hill. I run the YouTube channel, MrBucsNation, where I talk about all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now. See you soon, and go Bucs.